So today we're going to be having a look at the Pixel 10 series. The Pixel 10 series has been out for just about 2 weeks now, and I've got my hands on the Pixel 10 non-Pro version and the Pro XL. So what I want to do with this video is to look at, should you buy the Pixel 10 series, and if you're looking at the Pixel 10 series, which model should you go for? Because I think it's got a little bit confusing. So we've got the Pixel 10, the Pixel 10 Pro, the Pixel 10 Pro XL, and the Pixel 10 Pro Fold. So we've got quite a few different models in the series, and I want to make sure that you are aware, if you're looking at which one you are buying, what you're going to get for your money, and also which one you should choose in terms of storage options and everything like that. So we're going to break it down in this video, go through it in detail, go over the Pixel 10 series and find out which one you should buy. So when the Pixel 10 series was introduced about 2 weeks ago, as I mentioned, it wasn't a massive upgrade from the Pixel 9 series. So the Pixel 9 series was a huge upgrade we saw when it was launched over the 8 series. So we've got a brand new designed camera bar, which we're seeing here, and we've got a whole new design on the phone itself for different colours. But now on the Pixel 10 series, it's more of an iterative upgrade, like a sort of gentle upgrade, I like to say. So what we've got is the Pixel 10, which I've got here, which is the 6.3 inch version. And so this is the standard Pixel model, which is only available in one size, 6.3 inch. And then I've got the Pixel Pro series here, which is the Pixel Pro XL. So the Pixel Pro is also available in a 6.3 inch, which is exactly the same size as this. So it looks very similar to this phone, so don't mix it up. And then available in also a 6.8 inch screen here, this size one. So this is kind of like the iPhone Pro Max size, and this is more like the iPhone 16 size or iPhone 16 Pro if you're looking at it. So I mentioned iPhone because a lot of people are looking at Pixels come over from iPhone, as well as other Android phones as well. But I think it's the main port of call for people upgrading from iPhone, which is what I did when I changed over to Pixel about 3 years ago, I think it was. I went from an iPhone 14 Pro Max, I think it was, to an Pixel 8 Pro, which I still love, great phone, and if you've still got the 8 Pro, and you'll know what I'm talking about, it's a great phone. So both Pixels, the Pixel 10 series is made of aluminium, so both made of aluminium, but there is a slight difference in the design here. So the design of the Pixel 10 series is in like a brushed aluminium finish on the side of the phone, and you've got a full-on glass back on this one. So this is the indigo colour here, which I'll just get out and show you. So you've got a nice reflective glass back, and you've got a brushed aluminium finish. So I actually prefer the brushed aluminium finish over the Pro series. So the Pro series are meant to have a more premium finish. So they have like a matte glass back here, which is nice actually. It's not as slippy to hold. So the glass back on the Pixel 10 is a bit more slippy, but it looks quite classy as well. And then on the side of the Pixel 10 Pro series, you've got a sort of reflective, what do you call it, like a polished aluminium finish on the side, which looks premium, but it does scratch easily. So just bear that in mind. You want to keep your Pixel 10 Pro in a case, whereas if you're not using the Pixel 10 without a case, you'll be absolutely fine. So the Pixel, both are IP68 rated for their design and build quality, so that in terms of durability, there's not that much difference in them. And colour-wise, you've got a bit more of difference of here. So the Pixel 10, you've got it in indigo, which is the one I've got here, which is like a dark blue colour. You've got it in frost, which is like a light blue colour, and lemongrass, which is quite a greeny, bright green colour, and then obsidian, which is black. So you've got some different colours there to choose from. And the Pixel 10 Pro colours, which is nice to see that Pixel have actually introduced a jade colour, which is like a jade green colour with gold finish on the outside, which looks quite nice if you want a more sort of a colourful approach to your Pro phones, because Pro phones tend to be quite colourless, like the iPhone lineup, and other Pro series tend to be a bit boring. So it's nice to see Pixel introducing some good colours in the Pro series. And you've got porcelain, which is white, obsidian, which is black, and then moonstone, which is my favourite, which is light grey. I think this is a great colour. Google introduced this year with a matching case as well. So in terms of the display then, so the screen size and resolution are different. So the Pixel 10 has a 6.3 inch OLED display, which is the Pixel call their Super Actua display. So Super Actua was introduced with the Pixel 8 series. Before that, Pixel OLEDs were a bit lacking colour, not very bright, not very good. So Pixel really pushed the boat out when they came to the 8 series and introduced the Super Actua display. So since then, we've had a great OLED screen. So this is a slightly lower resolution OLED to the Pixel Pro series, and it also doesn't have LTPO technology. So what is LTPO? So LTPO enables the refresh rate to go down to 1 Hz. So what does that mean? So it means that it will save battery power essentially. So you've got a variable refresh rate from 1 Hz to 120 Hz. The refresh rate is how fluid and motion it looks on the screen and sort of gaming, stuff like that, and watching films. So if you have a variable refresh rate down to 1 Hz, if you're just looking at a still picture or reading something on the screen, not moving, it will lower the refresh rate down to 1 Hz and save battery power. So the Pixel 10 has a 60 Hz to 120 Hz refresh rate, so it doesn't go as low as the Pixel Pro. So for example, like when you've got the always on display on, which both phones have, it will use more battery on the Pixel 10 than the Pixel Pro, because the Pixel Pro will be able to lower its refresh rate lower. So that's a bit techie, but I just wanted to make sure you knew that. So both have got 120 Hz refresh rate. In reality, both panels look good. I've not noticed a big difference between them, and the battery life isn't too bad on either, which we'll go over later. The Pro phones also have slightly higher peak brightness. And what is peak brightness? So we all know that brightness is measured in nits. Sorry for people who understand all this. I'm just trying to get into the nitty gritty here to let people know who don't understand this, who might be going to compare these two phones, what they're going to get for the money. So the peak brightness on the Pixel 10 Pro is about 300 nits more than the Pixel 10. Does it make a difference in reality? If you're in really bright sunshine outside, you do kind of notice the difference a little bit, but the 300 nits isn't a massive problem anyway, because the Pixel 10 has about 3000 nits peak brightness, which is very good anyway, and it's excellent in the bright sunlight. I've not had any problems using it. So in real world use, there isn't much difference. Both displays look great in reality. So in terms of performance then, so Google fit their Tensor chips, the same Tensor chips to all their phones. So they fit it to the Pro phone and the non-Pro phone. So we've got the Tensor G5, the brand new chip in these phones for this year, which is available in the Pro and the non-Pro. And so the difference here is the RAM. So the RAM in the Pixel 10 comes with 12 gigabytes, and then the Pixel Pro comes with 16 gigabytes. So RAM's quite useful. Android phones need a bit more RAM than iPhones, for example. Apple use only 8 gigabytes in their phones, but Pixel have been using 16 gigs since last year and 12 gigs since the year before. So for AI, having lots of RAM is useful, because AI uses a lot of RAM in the background. For multitasking, it's really useful. If you do have lots of apps open at the same time, it will notice a bit of a difference. But in reality, again, I've not noticed a big difference. I've used both phones quite heavily and not had a problem with either. Both seem to run pretty well. I've run games on both and they both run quite quickly. Not really had a problem. If you open lots of apps at the same time, maybe you notice a slight difference that the Pro phone feels a little bit quicker, but it's very minimal, very variable. But if you are going to be using lots of apps and everything like that, and you are a bit of a power user, you want to go for the Pro anyway, I think, because of everything else that's on there. And storage options, so the Pixel 10 comes with either 128 gigabytes of storage or 256 gigabyte. The 10 Pro comes with 128 gigabytes on the smaller model, all the way up to a terabyte. And the Pixel 10 Pro XL starts at 256 all the way up to 1 terabyte. And the price is reflected on that. So the Pixel Pro XL starts at 1199 and then the Pixel Pro starts at 999. So that's the difference in. It's a bit like the iPhone lineup, very similar to be honest, and it depends on which storage option you choose, how much data, how much storage you need. I wouldn't go for 128 gig on the smaller Pixel. I would start at minimum 256 because I think most people will find it eats up pretty quick. Software experience in terms of performance is identical on both phones. We've got, yes, the Pro phones have more RAM, but I think it runs evenly on both and quickly. I've not had a problem with it. There are some bugs in Android 16 anyway, which is typical Pixel, like this. Some of the icons don't quite match properly when you're flicking through it, but that was fixed in the last update. So just bear that in mind, Pixels aren't quite as slick in terms of their performance as iPhones, for example, or other manufacturers, Android, because of the sort of Samsung. They're not as good as Samsung and their software side of things, but the software is very good when it gets moving, and I particularly like it. In fact, I'm moving to the Pixel full time now because I do like the Pixel UI interface. Just bear in mind there are a few little bugs in Pixels that have always been there and always will be there. I think typical how the Tensor G5 isn't the best processor on the market, but somehow works, and everyone seems to buy Pixels even though the processor's not that fast. I don't know why, but anyway, here we are. So real world performance, identical in both. Only when pushed on the Pro does the RAM come into play, such as multitasking. So we get onto the cameras now. So the cameras haven't really changed that much in the Pro phones from the Pixel 9 series. They upgraded in the 9 series and now they're pretty much the same. We've just got some software updates and a few tweaks here and there. So the Pixel 10 has had a bit of a bigger update. So this has now got a telephoto lens. So the Pixel 9 series did not have a telephoto, it just had an ultra-wide and wide-angle lens, which was nice to have, and they were higher resolution in the Pixel 9, but you had to use digital zoom to zoom in, not optical zoom, which didn't give you as good quality picture, even though Google software is pretty good, but still it's nice to have the telephoto. So we've got a 48 megapixel wide, a 30 megapixel ultra-wide, and a 10.8 megapixel telephoto, which has optical image stabilization on the Pixel 10. So the Cameras on the Pixel 10 are pretty good from using in real world use, and you also have a 10.5 megapixel selfie camera with autofocus, which is the same as last year, which is a nice camera and works pretty well in the real world. The Pixel 10 Pro and the Pixel 10 Pro XL all have a 50 megapixel wide, 48 megapixel ultra wide with autofocus, and a 48 megapixel with optical image stabilization, telephoto as well, and then a 42 megapixel selfie camera. So it does get confusing. The Pixel lineup is hard to know which one to go for, and I will try and summarize this up. I think it's particularly with the cameras, it is confusing. So you've got lower resolution cameras on the 10 Pro, but specs alone don't mean much. I've taken lots of photos on both these phones, and I found actually in real world use, the camera differences are quite small. So actually, when you look in on you can't take higher resolution images on the Pixel 10. So for example, he's stuck to 12 megapixel images, even though you've got a 48 megapixel camera on main camera. You can't take it in high res, and you can't use Pro controls either. Pro controls are limited to the Pro phones, understandably. But when you're just using it as a point and shoot phone, if you use both phones together as a point and shoot phone without doing any of the settings, the results are very similar because they're both using Pixel's HDR pipeline, HDR software. And actually, they've really tweaked the software this year, and it's amazing what Pixel can do with software and how good they can make the images look. And I think Pixels are one of the best phones for taking nighttime photography still, because they may not have the best lenses, the biggest sensors, but their software is so good that actually can enhance nighttime images really well. So the unique sort of feature on the video side of things on the Pixel Pro is called Video Boost. So Pixels have had Video Boost since the 8 series, and I quite like it. I use it quite a lot. So it upscales to 8K on the Pro series, which I know 8K most people don't use or care about, but you can take high resolution screenshots of the image from the Pixel, from the 8K image, and that gives you the ability to take still photos and print them off at high resolution. Also, you've got 4K 60 HDR ability on the video side of things with Video Boost, whereas the Pixel 10 maxes out at 4K 60 non-HDR, if you really care about that. In terms of portraits then, so the portraits on the Pixel 10 are good, and I think they look identical to the Pixel 10 Pro XL. One thing that is available on the Pixel 10 Pro is higher resolution portraits this year, so you can take a 50 megapixel portrait, which is meant to be more detailed and print off at higher resolution, so you can print it off bigger. If you want to print off A4 or canvas size portraits, then the Pixel Pro is the one to go for. If you're not bothered about that, then the Pixel 10 is the one to stick for. So no Pro controls, no Video Boost, and no night sight on the 10. So you get everything else. So the new thing that's been introduced this year is called Camera Coach, which is Pixels that sort of like to guide you through things and help you take better pictures. Like we had AdMe last year, we've still got that. But the Camera Coach is meant to, so you point the phone, it's a bit like it's run by Gemini, it's in AI enhanced, and it tells you exactly how to take a picture to get the best results. So I tried it out, and it does work. It works pretty well when you've got a good phone signal. So when I had bad phone signal, it didn't work as well because it relies on the signal, and it was really slow to use. So just bear that in mind. But when it was in a good phone signal area, it ran perfectly and gave me some good tips, and it helped me take better pictures, especially for portraits, because it tells you how to compose the image and stuff like that, which is available on both the Pro and the non-Pro phones. And I think that's a good addition to the actual Pixel lineup. So as I've mentioned, in terms of video performance and photo performance, I think you would expect the Pixel 10 Pro to blow the Pixel 10 out of the water, and it just doesn't. The Pixel 10 is such a good phone, so it does take excellent images and excellent video as well. So if you're after a phone, point and shoot phone, you're not bothered about screen size. Obviously the screen size is limited in this phone to this size, 6.3 inch. If you're not bothered about screen size, then the Pixel 10 is perfectly fine for you. I think the Video Boost does make a difference if you're willing to wait for it. You have to wait a while for it to download, and it can be a bit of a pain. I like Video Boost. A lot of people don't like it because they're saying basically Pixels are making up for their lack of power in the tensor to use the Video Boost. But I think it does more than that. I think it produces a much better image, particularly good at cleaning up nighttime images. So if you take a lot of video, you're particularly keen on your videography, the Pixel Pro series is the kind of one to go for because you get more storage as well, and then you've got the Video Boost feature, and it does make a difference. I'll show you on here how a non-boosted video and a boosted video, the kind of how it makes the colours look better and everything like that. So it is one to go for. In terms of battery then, so battery capacity on both has been upped a bit this year. So the Pixel 10 Pro XL has the biggest battery because it's the biggest phone. The Pixel 10 Pro has a sort of medium battery, which is upped by a little bit last year. and the Pixel 10 has a tiny bit more battery, but the smallest of the lot. In terms of real world performance then, I didn't notice much difference between the 10 and the 10 Pro XL. I don't have a smaller Pro on hand, so I don't know how that would work in the real world, but I think that the Pro and the non-Pro battery time, it's okay, it's average. You get about a day out of it, which is fine, even if you use the camera relatively heavily, but it will need to be charged sort of towards the end of the day if you use the camera a lot. I'd say it's fairly average, but it's not too bad. In terms of charging speeds then, so you've got the new QI2 charging speeds on both phones, which for those of you who don't know means it's got magnets built in, essentially like Apple's MagSafe. So you've got Pixel Snap chargers. So for example here, magnetic stand will just clip straight back onto the phone there, and you can hold it like that without any additional accessories, which is nice to do, which Apple have had for years, but it's nice that now introduced on the Pixel lineup. You've got 45 watt wired charging on the Pixel XL and about 30 watts on the Pixel 10, and it's pretty fast on both, to be honest, but a lot faster. It just feels noticeably faster on the Pixel Pro XL, which is the fastest. QI2 maxes out at 25 watts on the Pixel 10 Pro XL and also the Pixel Pro, and then 15 watts, which is standard wireless charging speeds on the Pixel 10. So fine, I think QI2 is definitely a good addition to the lineup and one reason to upgrade, in my opinion, over the older Pixels. In terms of everything else, you've got the software on there, like Android 16 is identical on both phones. You've got no differences in terms of software. You've got biometrics like on Face Unlock, and the ultrasonic fingerprint readers are in both phones and work identically as well. And you've got 5G connectivity. Speakers even sound the same. And updates and everything like that are all very similar on both phones. So the Pixel 10 starts at $799 and goes up to $899 for the 256GB model, which I've got here. And then the Pixel Pro XL is $1199, as mentioned, goes up to about $1549 for the 1TB model. Is it worth spending £200 more than to get the Pro? So I'd say for most people, most users, it's not actually, because you're not going to go into the advanced camera features like the Pro controls. If you just want to have point and shoot, you're happy that your screen is fine. You're not going to use, it's happy with a good OLED screen, but you're not bothered about that LTPO technology, about how how dim it's going to look at night, stuff like that. Then the standard 10 is a great phone. I think it's one of the best small phones on the market in the Android world at the moment, and it's much better than the iPhone 16 or maybe even the iPhone 17 that's coming out this afternoon. But it just is better phone in my opinion than those. So if you want the LTPO technology and the better Pro camera controls, then yes, by all means get the Pro, but you're going to have to pay a lot more, reasonable more money to get it. And often, if you get the Pro on offer or got a decent trading deal, then go for the Pro by all means. You do get more on it, but it's a very small difference. I think most people will see the word Pro, think great phone, need to go for it, need all this. And in the iPhone world, if you're coming from that there is a difference. Like you don't get the 120 hertz refresh rate on the non-Pro iPhones, but you do on the Pixel. So just check out the Pixel 10. I think it's a great phone for most people. It's got a really good camera system, been enhanced by that telephoto lens this year, and I just think it's a great phone for the price. So so that's it then basically. So would you buy the Pixel 10? Let me know your thoughts. Would you go for the Pixel 10, or would you go for the Pixel 10 Pro or the Pro XL, or would you not buy either? Would you go for a different Android phone? So what do you think of the Tensor G5? Do you think it's rubbish, or do you think it's okay? I've had a few issues with it heating up, but overall it seems a bit better than the G4, I think. So let me know in the comments down below, get involved, and we'll talk about this. And thank you for watching, appreciate it guys, and a thumbs up and a subscribe would mean the world. So speak to you next time, and thank you very much.